And now it's time to get into the media review portion of our show, or as Professor Van Helsing calls it...
the ghastly paraphernalia of our beneficial trade.
Isn't Abraham good?
Oh, yes, he's amazing.
That's why John Johnson is the best. In any case, our review this week is the 1922 version of Nosferatu. A lot of you have taken issue with what we said last week about this being the inferior of the Nosferatu films, and I'm going to throw it out to you this week in the sumptuousness of my fruity tones. Is that how it goes?
Close enough.
Very well. Nosferatu was written by Henrik Galeen and directed by F.W. Murnau in 1922. It stars Greta Schroeder, Gustav von Weigerhem, and Max Schreck. Because the Stoker family didn't release the rights to Dracula, Murnau and crew had to deviate from the plot and the scheme just a little bit. They changed their place to Wisbarg, Germany. Instead of Renfield, we have Nock. Instead of Harker, we have Hutter. And instead of Count Dracula, we have Count Orlok. In the same vein, Hutter goes to the castle and escapes. We have the sequence of the ship. We also have a very lovely sequence with Ellen, or who in Stoker's book will be called Mina. But there are a lot of things missing. One, the Lucy character is not there. Second of all, instead of the epic confrontation in Chapter 27 of Dracula, we have Count Orlok being banished by the sunlight. First instance of that in cinema. It's stylized with a heavy German expressionistic air. It's not too long, in 94 minutes. And it is one of those films that is in the public domain, so if you want to pick up YouTube and watch that right now, you may, or you can go on Netflix. And also, Kino Video did a decent job of restoring Nosferatu on Blu-ray, so if you'd like to, go ahead and pick that up. Now, let me preface this next part by saying I love silent cinema. One of my favorite films of all time is 1920's The Mark of Zorro with Douglas Fairbanks. I love Lon Chaney's The Phantom of the Opera in 1925. I also really enjoy The Man Who Laughs. But I like Nosferatu. I don't love it, I like it. I find the version in the 70s, directed by Werner Herzog, was better. And yes, that is blasphemy to say amongst horror fans, but there's an element here that's necessary. Some films are really good in silence. For instance, Todd Browning directing Bela Lugosi. In the early days of cinema, when that was released, it was often shown in theaters as silent, and it was very effective. This story isn't. It feels wrong and a little bit disjointed. It doesn't take itself too seriously sometimes, which is good. However, the necessary element of sound isn't there. Honestly, I think they did Dracula way too soon. It was nice and ambitious, but this is a very big story with a demanding budget, hence later on, which is why we have the Balderson Dean play in Dracula 1931. It's a good film. It does get the Dracula podcast seal of approval, but I don't love it. I don't worship the thing like most people do. On IMDb, from 64,134 users, it has an 8.0 rating, solid. I would put it somewhere around a 7. I think it's a little bit overrated. Thankfully, the film wasn't lost and has been restored properly from generation to generation. I do recommend on buying it in Blu-ray also, however there are other things you should buy first. Yet, if you get the opportunity to buy it in Blu-ray from Kino Video, here's what you're going to get. There are 2 versions of the film. It's 2 discs. One has the original German intertitles with optional English subtitles.